Back to Joe Stunner Boxing. I hope you're having a good week. Shall we talk about Conor Benn? Stop rolling your eyes. Come on. Yeah, we're back to that again. But this is an interesting little development. So bear with me. Okay, so Robert Smith of the British Boxing Board of Control. He's the General Secretary. He went on TalkSport and he said they asked him questions about Conor Benn, and he said, "No, I don't think he should be fighting." Where do we begin with this? I mean, should we go back to the beginning again? Probably not. Look, Conor Benn originally didn't want anything to do with the board. He thought that they were being vindictive towards him, and he wouldn't hand over his little dossier and all this business because his father, Nigel Benn, 33 years ago, ripped up his licence, and Conor Benn thinks that the board have got it in for the Benn name because of that. Obviously rubbish. The idea initially was, well, I'll go and get a licence in America, and then suddenly him and his little string puller. Well, actually, that's not fair because Ben himself makes the decisions. But him and Eddie Hearn, anyway, they discovered after a while that Conor Benn means nothing in America, and if he's banned by the board, there are very, very few people who are going to license him unless you go out into the backwaters, into the boonies, where I used to live when I was over there. So he ended up in Mexico having a fight, and suddenly there was a sort of volte-face where he suddenly decided, okay, I'll talk to the board. We'll get a license. I'll get a British Boxing Board of Control license, and then I can have my gimmicky catchweight thing with Eubank Jr. I'll have it in Britain where it belongs, where it can make the most money. Now, why did Eddie Hearn support Conor Benn so much? Because he had promoted him from the word go, from his debut, and he'd invested a lot of money in him, and there's a lot of money to be made. And Eddie Hearn is a money man. He's interested in money, okay? I wouldn't say he was entirely immoral, not like a few others we could mention, but he's definitely... it's definitely about money. He's a pure capitalist. Okay, so Robert Smith was interviewed and asked about all this, and then he said, I don't think he should be boxing, he of course being Ben. Personally, I don't think he should be boxing until the matter is cleared. Hopefully that'll be done as soon as possible. And Ben's promoter has been adamant that his man has now cleared his name, hence why he's free to fight. And Smith insisted he hasn't cleared it. A number of issues are still outstanding which everybody's aware of. We've decided to appeal a decision, and once the appeal has taken place, we'll take it on board from there. So Ben was, cleared to fight because I think of a technicality, and the board are appealing the decision of, I get all these names mixed up, the overall doping agency for the UK. It's not going to come to me. Anyway, you know what I mean. The doping, I hope you know what I mean. The doping agency, the National Doping Agency says, whatever the acronym is, says, yeah, all right, Ben can fight, and the board is saying, no, hang on a minute, this is not fair. We're not going to give him a license until this has been heard out, until our opinion, our view has been heard rather, and. Robert Smith went on, he said, when Eddie says he's cleared his name, according to us, we haven't had an explanation of how the positive test came about, so I don't agree with Eddie on that one. And then Smith continued, the only communication I've had is from journalists in Florida and the Florida Commission asking what the situation is. I've gone back and said he's not licensed by the British Boxing Board of Control. There's an appeal in process, and until that is dealt with, obviously we can't give him permission to box in this country. Not for sure, he says. They're awaiting the appeal. They want to be heard. They want their side of the story heard, which is only fair. If they're happy to let him box over there, meaning Florida, then ultimately it's up to them. That's the trouble with no world governing body. Yes, indeed it is. Yes, that bit's self-explanatory. We're appealing along with UKAD, the NADP. Okay, that's the acronym I was trying to think of a moment ago. We are along with UKAD are appealing the NADP's decision. That's the National Anti-Doping Program. Oh, whatever. We're waiting for a date. a bit frustrated it's taking so long to get a date. We're ready to go. I understand UCAD are ready to go. We've asked for a date as soon as possible. We're very disappointed with the original decision, and if we were to lose the next one, we would be disappointed. Doubly disappointed, probably. But we'd have to take on board what the decision is, and then we would decide what we need to do. Now, that makes perfect sense, okay? Ben wants a British Boxing Board of Control licence, a British licence. The board are saying we don't agree with the NADP's decision, so we're appealing. And of course that appeal has to be heard. And meanwhile, Ben and Hearn are saying, oh, they're holding up my career. And, oh, what's the world coming to? And don't you know I'm innocent? I proved I was innocent. I proved that I was innocent. I was my judge and jury, okay? Because I had my, 500,000 page document or whatever the hell it was, that piece of thing that which was compiled using paid professionals, paid for by Ben. All this has been put together, and why? You're just being vindictive. You're just being silly. I'm going to scream and scream and scream. Look, I don't know whether it's because Ben comes from money, and has been a spoilt little brat all his life. Hearn, another money man, another one who's, although again, Ben and Hearn are hard workers. I'm not going to dismiss their work ethic, but maybe they're used to getting their own way. People with a silver spoon shoved in their mouth are. And yes, you can work very hard and have a great work ethic and turn the silver spoon into a proverbial golden one, which both these guys, Hearn and Ben, seem to be doing. But nevertheless, you cannot expect others to simply, fall into place because it's inconvenient to you if they don't. So I'm very much on the side of the board here, very much on the side of the board. But it does throw a spanner in the works for this strange gimmick fight with Eubank Jr. I mean, just touching on that briefly, I do find it... Is the phrase cashing out the right phrase? Because to me it seems that Hearn looks at the welterweight division and he sees a Jerome Ennis, and obviously Crawford is still in charge, and you've got a few others who I would certainly pick to beat Conor Benn, put it that way. Even if you look down at 140, people who might come up, people like Matthias, I don't see Conor Benn as being a top 5 welterweight in the world. He certainly hasn't proved it. And if he was to take on those guys, it would be high risk, low reward. So it seems to me that Hearn is pushing the Conor Benn Chris Eubank Jr. fight as purely a money fight. Conor is his client. He wants to maximise his earnings and his own earnings, Hearn. So they obviously, want as much money as possible, and therefore the obvious thing is stick him in with Eubank, a man who is a career 160. Well, apart from when he fought up at 168 and he came back down to 160. I think it's a gimmick fight. I always have done. I've never ever thought that's a good fight, even from an entertainment standpoint. I think if Eubank comes in and he isn't weight drained, he'll smash Ben to bits. I really think so. And it's not because I don't think Ben has got talent. I do think he's got talent, and I think he has worked hard before he got busted. I think okay, we saw improvements, and you could say, well, that's because he's juicing, but nevertheless, he seemed to be taking the game seriously. He seemed to be living the life, perhaps living the life, you know what I mean? And of course, none of us can fully know exactly what went on with the failed PED test. And there were 2 of them. Don't forget there were 2 of them, not 1, 2 of them. So a big fat question mark, obviously, over Conor Benn. I think probably the Eubank fight is, if not a cash out, then a case of grab a load of money, and then I'll come back down to 147, win or lose, and then I can maybe make some more money trying to win a world title and defending it. But you need a licence to do that if you want to do it in Britain, and the only place where Ben versus Eubank is a massive draw is in Britain. So what's next for Hearn and Ben? Go and get a different licence? I don't know. Hearn has said we want it under the jurisdiction of the British Boxing Board of Control. You might have to wait, mate, a long time. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Leave yours below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. hit the subscribe button and hit the like button. Leave your comments below. What do you think of this? Are you sick to death of the whole thing, or do you have any sort of further opinions? Do you agree with me, or do you think, nah, Ben's being hard done by? Are you on the side of the board or Ben, or maybe neither? Maybe you see both points of view. Leave your comments below. I shall look at them, read them, answer them, and all the rest of it. And thanks for your time as always. I'll catch you later. Bye for now.